Welcome back. Here we have the Buffet R13. You may have heard of it. The question is, was this the clarinet that changed the clarinet industry? And you have to excuse me up front as I slaughter name pronunciation as we go along. But this would be the first of several R13 videos, as there's a lot to say in review. Some information I'm presenting is from memory, and others from references I'll show you if possible. But what I have here is my 1R13. It's a 1966 model approximately. My B flat. My A is from 1968, I believe. And this R13 over here, which I'm taking apart, is a 51,000 series, which is from the early days, from 1955 approximately. I also used to own a 48,000 series clarinet, which sounded remarkably close to the R13. It was just more powerful, and we'll talk about that too as we move along. But we can thank Robert Carree, who I think died in 1981. If you know the exact date of when he was born and died, please comment below, because I cannot find much information about him. But we know he joined Buffet Crampon as an apprentice in 1921. This is actually on the Salmer's web page. In 1938, he became a factory manager, but I'm pretty sure I read that somewhere in a book. I was looking around where I could have gotten it from, and I couldn't find it. In 1945, he started to design on a new bore clarinet, and at some point, he also became the head acoustical technician. What I want to show here is Buffet's website, their R story page. In here, it has listed 1921. Robert Carree joins Buffet Crampon as an apprentice in 1921. He is a talented acoustics technician and the creator of the R13 model. What I want to show here is this is a PDF download from Buffet's website. On page 7 has some interesting statements. Let's go to page 7. Over here, the short history of bores. Basically says in 1950, he created the R13 family of clarinets. The R13 has polycylindrical bore, giving a warmth and focus that are extraordinary. Here it says 1950, which is interesting. Let's take a look at something else right now. What I'm showing here now is during 45 to 1957, I just did a calculation about 3,000 per year from the date of 45 up to 1958 and came up with this breakdown. So in 1955, I have it starting at 50,501, and this model, as I mentioned over here, is a 51,600. So this theoretically could happen, been created in 1955. Now, I also had a 48,000 series clarinet, which would have been the year beforehand. And unfortunately, I sold it about 9 years ago. But in my website and the notes I had in here, I mentioned during the 1950 to 55 time frame, the polycylindrical bore was used experimentally and evolved towards the R13 in 1955, which is interesting because I actually measured out my 48,000 series clarinet. We're going to look at those numbers right now. So what we're looking at here is a spreadsheet I designed and developed as I was learning about stuff. These first couple columns here is the 48,000 Buffet. This next column here is a 1965 Buffet, 85,000 series. Now this time I was just measuring, if you see these numbers, this is the middle of the tone hole of 5.33 because the R13 has hourglass shaped tone holes. The lower part of the tone hole is harder to measure, and I actually created a device which I don't have with me anymore, but it's easier to measure the middle of the tone hole and then the outside of the tone hole. Just depends how far you're pushing the calipers. Anyways, you can see here on a 1965 Buffet R13, 5.33 was the middle of the tone hole, and 5.55 was the outer part of the tone hole. This is for the second trill key. And the 48,000 series also had hourglass, or at least partially. I never measured the inside part of it, but the tone holes are very similar. I mean, 5.35 and 5.33 could be the same. Remember, this is wood, and using manual metal calipers, you could have some deviation there. And 5.6 and 5.55, that's close enough for me. And the other numbers here were also very, very similar. 5.23 to 5.3, 5.6 to 5.55, rounded up is 5.6. Difference in the location of the thumb hole by a bit, and location of the register vent by a bit. And the top ring key, 115, 115. This is the distance from the top of the joint. I measured the distance from the top of the joint right here to the middle of each tone hole going down. That's what the numbers, the first numbers on the left column are. But here we have 5.13 is the middle of the tone hole, and 5.44 would be the top exit point of the tone hole. And on the R13 it was 4.86 or 4.8 or 4.9, and 5.1 or 5.2. And we can see that the earlier 48,000 series Buffet was slightly bigger in some areas. These first two rings, it was bigger. And then later on, it became smaller. So that was very interesting. The 48,000 series Buffet that I had, I wish I had it back. That was an excellent playing clarinet. Like I said, it was R13-like, but it was a little bit more powerful. It didn't quite have the ping of an R13, though, but it was a very, very beautiful sounding clarinet. I just have too many clarinets and still have too many clarinets. So there's a definite indication here that he could have been playing with a polycylindrical bore. I did not measure out the bore, though. I just measured the top entry point of the bore. What I usually did is I measured the diameter here and the diameter here. But what I'm doing over here is I'm taking off the keywork. I'm actually going to measure down the bore. At one time, about 20 years ago, I did measure the bores of these using a electronic shotgun measuring tool to measure the bore of shotguns. And I was able to get an electronic diagram what the bore looked like. And in another episode, we're going to actually look at that, seeing what this 51,000 series bore looks like. What is polycylindrical? That's what we're going to answer here. Anyways, these numbers here show you that there was, in the early stages of the Buffet, I guess you can call experimentation of the polycylindrical bore here, at least with the tone holes, definitely with the tone holes there. We got to remember Selmer, Paris, in the late 50s is when they went to a tapered bore with the CT and then the Series 9. So it seems like Buffet, of the three primary companies, was the first one to go towards a tapered bore. I haven't checked any other clarinets. I have some other miscellaneous clarinets here, but I'm not sure they're of the right vintage to actually even create any correlation. This actually was pictures of my 40,000 series clarinet here. A little bit out of focus, but it's a real pretty clarinet. Polished up really nicely too. And really shiny, as you can see from the pictures. Like I said, I sold it about 9 years ago. If you bought it from me, could I have it back, please? At least to measure the upper joint bore. Now, we also have to remember he did more than just the R13 clarinet. He was also responsible for the Buffet Dyna-Action saxophone. And he also created the French bassoon. You know, we can excuse him for the bassoon, you know. Just kidding, of course. And a few other things as I was reading around, Sax Quest, for instance, they mentioned the S3 Prestige saxophone, stating its design was pioneered by retired craftsman Guilain Rizzo or something, who was a trainee of Robert Carree. And he designed the S1 with Daniel Defaye. I don't know if you remember the S1 saxophone is the one that had the really weird pinky articulation table keys, both left and right table keys. Interesting horn. I remember that a long time ago. But Buffet saxophones, I always love the sound of those. The tone of Buffet saxophones is fantastic. Nothing quite like the Selmer Mark 6 though, which had that nice bucket sound when you had a really open mouth embouchure and mouthpiece. But anyways, of all the people who had made their mark in the history of Buffet, Robert Craig is without doubt one of the most important. He dedicated his career to perfecting the musical instrument artistically as well as mechanically. Of course, some may say LeBlanc had better key work, but he did a good job. And of course, it really didn't change much over the years, anyways. But he revolutionized the world of the clarinet with the development of their new line of unique polycylindrical bore clarinets. So in 1921, he started working for Buffet, long time. Anyways, if anyone has a spare 1950 to 1955 pre-R13 Buffet I could look at, I'd love to take a look at it again. As I mentioned, I sold my master bore clarinet probably 9 years before today. And I seriously thought it was just a taper bore clarinet. I never really measured the bore beyond the entry and exit bores and the tone holes, of course, as you saw. As I mentioned, it was a fantastic playing clarinet. Lovely tone, full evenness, and glorious but a more powerful projection to me. The R13, though, just had that ping tonal quality to it that the pre-R13 didn't. And as we saw on my spreadsheet, the difference in the tone holes, the pre-R13 had larger tone holes on top and they scaled down a bit, at least from the one example I had measured. But anyways, to you, did the Buffet R13 change the landscape of the clarinet design? If you think so, let's hear your questions and comments below. Don't forget to please like, subscribe, and share as you learn more about the R13 other clarinets. And until next time, have fun.